Everybody's got their own cheshbonos and their own things which they know. It's supposed to be like something to think about, to realize. It wasn't a bad what did he say? What did he say?
About half an hour before it happened. He's singing, the Shiur song, and all of a sudden he stops and says, because it out absolutely off the thing.
Speaking out the mirror,
Good enough. What's he saying? Okay. Shvedis Simcha was starting a new perek, the second perek of Yoma. In the beginning. Anybody who wants to do Truma Sadesh and Terem can do it. We mentioned that Hoitzoa Sadesh, that's the word I was looking for the other day. Hoitzoa Sadesh and Truma Sadesh. Truma Sadesh was a mitzvah that was done every single day. A small amount of ashes was taken from the middle of the Mizbeach and taken to be put where? At the side of the Mizbeach. And what happened to it? Swallowed up. And then there was Hoitzoa Sadesh, which actually the Rambam also writes happened every day, but Rashi says many places it's not happened every day. The Rambam agrees that on Yom Tov they didn't do it because we said once before, wants to show big power, but it wasn't the same chiyuv.
Did always all the kabbalah totally burn to ashes?
Yes, except for the parts the Kohen would eat, but most of it was there.
It takes a long time.
Yeah, it was a big fire. And what happened was you've got Truma Sadesh, you've got Hoitzoa Sadesh. Now we're only talking about Truma Sadesh, which is a mitzvah every day, and it's the first mitzvah of the day. So anybody who wanted to do it could do it. It was man shein merubin, if there were many of them. Rodzin v'oilin bekevesh, they would run up the ramp. Whoever reached within 4 amas, the more describe in detail which 4 amas we mean, Zocha, he gets it. If both of them are equal, that means both reach within 4 amas at the same moment. Hamamun, that one in charge, Hatzpiu means put out the fingers, from the word etzba. And here's the fascinating thing is that what would we say? That those two should put out a finger, but it's not true. All the Kohanim put out a finger. There are many reasons given. One of them was about a batish one I've ever heard. I hope to, but that doesn't necessarily a negative thing. We're showing it means a very technical answer. Anybody want to guess why didn't we just do the two? He says because it's such. The Meiri says it's impossible to do a raffle between two people because the way they did the raffle was with a number. So if let's say it was an even number, you knew the second one would get it. If it was an odd number, the first person would get it. So it's impossible to choose through a number, as we will see. Maybe, if you don't mind, let's just take upload our next few pages. So Hatzpiu would stick out a finger. Umahin would see which finger would they stick out? Achas u'shtayim, just 1 or 2 fingers. That means you can't stick out 5 fingers, and then that way, because it would count you through the fingers. Because in that way, you'd get more of a chance. The aim would see in Agudah B'Mikdash, you never stuck out the thumb. Anybody know why you can't stick out the thumb? Yeah, because it can look like 2 fingers. So if you're therefore, you never stuck out a thumb at all. You only stuck out a finger. The more explain, if you're very tired and old and you can't stick out 1 finger, you can stick out 2 next to each other. But the thumb, you can never stick out. Yehuda, this is the pictures, just how these are not the pictures based on the daf. It is pictures based on the Seder Avodah, which for whatever reason, there's more pictures of them. It doesn't matter. What? It's volume 2. It's volume 2. It doesn't matter. There's not that many pictures. Okay, you just added more. Okay. So, so Ma'isa she'ishneim shavnu both equal. V'rotzim v'olim bekevesh. They run up the ramp. V'dochaf echad ben eschavei. One pushed off the other one. V'nofa v'nishbu rogloi, and his leg broke. And given shor basin sheboine de sakana, they saw that he came to a danger. He skinned made the takodesh. They determined his berachel of a pious. Everything went by a lottery. Our pious how you sham. There were 4 lotteries. Is there a pious vision? And this was the first lottery. And again, we shouldn't argue. When we say there were 4 lotteries, do we mean there were 4 lotteries also on Yom Kippur or not? According to the man, the one who God who did it everything, there was no lotteries at all. That's the shayla. It's very important to point out that the Teres Shalom tells us you're not allowed to run inside the Beis Hamikdash. You're not allowed to run. So therefore, the Teres Shalom says, in fact, the correct way to walk in the Beis Hamikdash is that no leg should be what steps? Small steps. So how small steps?
One after the other.
Yeah, very good. Exactly. How do you know?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. One after the other. That means the back of your front leg should reach the toes of your back leg. So how could they run? So he said they ran like that. They ran like that.
Basically.
Like?
Hobbling.
Yes. Another malach, he says, he gives two shots. If you look at the first section on the page, another malach, he says that when you're running for a mitzvah, you're allowed to run the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore you are. So the Shulchan Aruch talks about if you get an aliyah, should you run to the bima? I've never seen people running to the bima, but it does say you should take the shorter route. There's a lashon in one of the poskim that you should run to the bima. Even though you're not supposed to run to shul to show God's reasons for the mitzvah. Yes. Okay, I suppose no. You could be walking from place to place. Here, running to get the mitzvah. What's the lashon is? So okay, this is a different notion that is to get to an avodah, so you're allowed to run. Okay. Says the Gemara, why didn't they just originally establish a lottery? Why did they first set up the system, which everybody can realize?
To see who cared about it most to win.
Yeah, but they
lottery, someone might not want to do it.
They didn't realize how many people would want to do it.
But you realize that it's a dangerous situation. It is a dangerous thing. Okay. Says the Gemara, because someone originally they thought it's a night job. It's not important to the Kohanim. But also they won't come. It means like this: if you're told, if you wake up early and you get to the Beis Hamikdash, you still will only get to do the Tumas Hadesh and through a lottery. Nobody would come. So therefore they said there should be no lottery and everybody who wants to come should come. And in that way, whoever got up early, at least knew that if he got up early enough, he would get it. Keep the chos of the course. So once they saw that people were coming, so they made a lottery. The end of the night, there was two jobs. It's during the day. They would put all the limbs, but you're allowed to enact the limbs all night long. Right? You're allowed to bring the limbs all night long. Maybe here. You're allowed to bring limbs all night long. And that was also a lottery. In fact, many people just have married some of us that married is connected to us Yvon P'dom. And that's why some say married is for shus, because not always was there Yvon P'dom to report up. Okay. Says the Gemara, but Takinu lo abonon paisa. Answers the Gemara, Soif avodah diyomohi. Putting the limbs on the Mizbeach is not a separate job from the day, but it is part of the day. And since it's part of the day, it's important to people. People feel a day job, that's important. Middle of the night, it's not so important. If that's the case, the Tumas Hadeshen is part of the beginning of the day job. The halacha is that certain times the Kohen had to wash his hands, certain times he had to go to mikvah. If a Kohen was awake all night long, he did not need to go to mikvah, he just needed to wash his hands and feet. Let's say he woke up before morning and he washed his hands and legs for the Tumas Hadeshen. And the Tumas Hadeshen could be done, as we've said before. When could it be done? Even earlier. So you might say to yourself, it's really like Shavuos by night. If you stay up, and then what happens is you wash your hands. When do you have to wash your hands again? By Alois. So by Kiddush Rabbi says that you don't need to. Why not? It's mashma that he's already started the avodah. Tumas Hadeshen is part of the day job. As Shkar Kiddush, you have to say Shkar Kiddush mitchila avodah. It's not part of the day job, but rather he's prepared himself to do the avodah, but not that it's actually part of the avodah. Ikadami. Some say not the pshat because some give the kohen shena. Since people are tired, lo yasu. Give the chazut also because namely the sakana people are coming and coming to sakana taking on abon paisa. Fade more by Yvon P'dom the kohen shena. People are tired late at night and they put the limbs on the mizbeach. But taking on abon paisa. Nevertheless, there's a lottery. And here the Gemara says something which is so. It's happened so much. Shagdi migdam and maker. People don't mind staying up late at night to put the limbs on the mizbeach, but to get up early to get to do the Tumas Hadeshen, people are reluctant.
People aren't staying up late to put the Ehoim on the mizbeach.
People don't mind. What? People don't mind.
I'm staying up late, not because I'm doing mitzvahs.
No, because people don't mind staying up late, but to get up early, that's much harder. A friend of mine, Tommy, was sitting schmoozing on the Chav Hashpam. I saw it was Motzei Shabbos. It was 2-3 in the morning. It was about quite a few years ago. I remember when it happened. I saw Chaim Knesset going to them, starting his day, and he felt his heart like sinking. Like, he hadn't even gone to bed. Chaim was getting up to start his day. They got up early it's a big struggle. So therefore, again, so there's two mahalchim in the Gemara why in the beginning they never made a lottery. Either they thought to themselves that people are not machshavit because it's a job of the night, but then Evamu Pedorim is a choshev job because it's a continuation and a completion of the day job. Alternatively, because people are tired. Oh, so why Evamu Pedorim? You're right. People are also tired for that, but it's easier to stay up late than to get up early. Says the Gemara. The takana was not exactly like we said. It was the takana was different, meaning the takana was a continuation of a different lottery, and therefore there should have been a lottery. The Tanya, one who was zech b'tumas hadesha, zacha b'sidur ma'arocha. He was also the one who prepared the fire every single day. You had to rebuild the fire, and also with putting the back. Did they put the pictures of that? No, they didn't. Oh. Here, where is it? So here you've got Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, washing hands and feet. By the way, you do one hand and one foot together. And here he's bringing wood from his beach. And here he's preparing the fire. Can you see? Have you put on the pictures?
Yeah,
because they put on some of the pictures. Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, it's all on. Right. The whole, so the more ask a kasha is, how can you say there was no lottery because it wasn't important or because it was middle of the night? It's not true. The lottery to win the Tumas Hadeshen involved much more than just the Tumas Hadeshen. And therefore it's a day job. If it's a day job, it's an important job, everybody's going to want to do it. There were really two kinds of takanas. The Tosfos the whole avichos, there wasn't like two separate takanas, but rather it was two steps into one takana. Because in immigration, they thought people are not going to come. Why? Because what's the point of getting up early and still only get into a lottery? That wasn't worth it. So people weren't coming. They saw people coming to a danger. So then they went and made the lottery because they saw it was dangerous. And then the danger which they were worried about occurred. What's the danger? That people were coming. We were making a lottery, so people stopped coming. They said to themselves, who says we'll catch it? So what happens is, they made it that you get more in order to make it worthwhile for people to get up. So it went in a few stages. The first stage was that they thought to themselves, we'll make a lottery, people won't come. So they just whoever gets there first. They saw that people were coming. Once people were coming, and they got dangerous, they made a lottery. Once they made a lottery, I wonder if there's another word for lottery. Raffle. Raffle's probably better. I'm not sure if raffle's much better. Okay, raffle. Lottery. Okay, what happened was, then they saw that people weren't coming. So then they had to make it more exciting, worthwhile to come. So they added to the original thing. Okay. Says the Gemara. The 4 amas. Why? Means which 4 amas are we talking about? The first having of a papa was once you get within 4 amas of the bottom of the ramp, you are the winner. That's not, says Papa. How do I know that's not? Because what's in the Oilim Mekevishtan? It says they ran up the ramp. So obviously they've started running up the ramp before they came to who's going to win. It's not the one who managed to cover the first 4 amas of distance. How long was the ramp? It's very good. It was 32 amas. No, 32 amas were overlapped. Yes, overlapped 2 amas of the thing. It wasn't exactly 32. Let's see if you can work it out. Why wasn't it exactly 32? So how long was it? It's 32 in length and 10 amas high. It is about 36. No, Ben?
Maybe.
I thought you learned mathematics.
I need a calculator for that.
You never learned to times tables?
A squared plus B squared.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is actually that.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to spend quite long working it out because
32 squared.
It's 1,000
Plus 100.
plus 100.
And then the square root of
Yeah, that's right.
Square root.
Okay. Says the Gemara, it's not the first 4 amas before the ram says it's not the first 4 amas. It's not the first 4 amas. It's whoever gets there first after the 1 up 4 amas. Says a papa, the Beini Namiloy. It wasn't also a middle 4 amas. That means it wasn't 4 amas somewhere in the middle. Why? Delay Messiah Milsa. Delay Messiah Milsa means you can't choose any middle 4 amas because how is anybody going to know if they want? So, Delay Messiah Milsa, Pshitini Gabe Mizbeach Tanam. So we're referring to 4 amas of the Mizbeach. That means the answer must be whoever got to within 4 amas of the Mizbeach, they were the winner. How much?
33.53.
No, I can't believe that's the only.
34. 35.
I have to ask myself. Say the next.
I was answering the equation as well. 33.526109228488.
How much?
33.52.
According to Ben, the whole distance was only 33.5 amas.
34.98.
He got to
How's it got a different
35.
figure than I've got?
I got
Different Then it's the square root of 1224.
1,1,2,4.
What's this?
32 by 32.
1,024.
102. 33.5. Yeah.
1124.
Oh, Boya Papa, Abba Shamu, Bahati, Amma Yesod Amma Seve, or Dilmo, perhaps, top of face with base. Baba Yesod Amma Seve, take David. As we showed many times, the Mizbeach overlapped the Sod and the Seve. The 4 amas, was it 4 amas from the top of the roof of the Mizbeach, which is, that means only 2 amas left of the ramp, and the next 2 amas is overlapping the Sod, or 4 amas from where the base is, meaning 6 amas approximately from the top. Teiku, it's a teiku. We do it. Okay. Take out a finger. Take out your fingers that we should count them. You should count themselves. Why count the fingers? They decided that also the English is so that you're not allowed to count Kaisalim for mitzvah. The first battle that Shlomo Melech ever did, what he did was he counted them in Bezek, and the Gemara explains, according to this explanation, Bezek was broken earthenware vessels. He gave out broken earthenware vessels. Everybody took a shard, a small piece. They put it into buckets, and they counted how many the shards, how many pieces there were in the buckets. Then the Tisha and others ask the question, hey, you want a pasuk to tell you not to count? It's a Torah says it. Why do you have to bring a raya from Shlomo Melech? The answer is because here you're counting the Dvar Mitzvah. And you might have thought that Dvar Mitzvah is permitted. So that's why we have to bring a raya for Shlomo Melech, even for Dvar Mitzvah. It's also. Rashi, my diabetic, the mitzvah. How do you know it means earthenware? Maybe it's the name of a place because they found the king of Bezek. So Bezek is a place. It doesn't just mean earthenware. If you look at Rashi there in Shmuel, he says Bezek. One explanation is pieces of earthenware. Another explanation is the name of a place. That's already a much later battle when he attacked Amalek. So he counted Klal. So what did he do? Is he gave everybody a sheep and he counted how many sheep there were. You're not allowed to be counted. This one come out over the Shnelam, 2 lam, Shnema lo yimad le sofik, can't be measured, can't be counted. So a person mustn't count Klal Yisrael, it's not there to count. He asks the contradiction. They're actually like the dust of the sea. Now the sand of the sea, can it be counted? Yes, it can. Eventually, technically it can. And another pasuk says a kaisel can't be counted. Lo kasha. When kaisel do the voice of Hashem, they can't be counted, and they don't. But just like the sand of the sea. That means b'dei Adam they can't be counted. B'dei Shemayim they can be counted. Okay. Two Rutzim Eides B'zman Shosim V'Tzil Shemokim they can't be counted. So when they're serving Hashem properly, they can't be counted. They're not serving Hashem like the sand of the sea. Alternatively, it's b'dei Adam or b'dei Shemayim as to whether they can be counted. Now I'm going to go learn a little bit about Shaul HaMelech. And we have to understand, obviously, that Shaul HaMelech was somebody that we have absolutely no understanding of his tremendous greatness, even though when you read Shmuel, learn Shmuel, it gets very hard to think. Okay, once a person is appointed as a parnas, what's a good word for parnas? Administrator, no, a leader, a macha, what? President. Misashe becomes wealthy. Why? Shaul HaMelech went to war a couple of times. The first time he went to war, how did he count them? With pieces of earthenware. The last time he went to war, how did he count them? With sheep. What's the proof? Maybe they provided the sheep and he counted them. Says, Mom, what's the bill? So what's special about it that Akadosh Baruch Hu would possibly needs to tell us this? The fact that he needs to tell us is a raya that became very wealthy. This is referring to the battle with Amalek. Shmuel HaNavi told him, go and destroy Amalek. Men, women, babies, children, and every animal. And the apostle says, he fought in the Nachal. And Nachal is usually a river. The problem is, you don't usually go to war in a river. Marshall says this. They usually fight in a river. You usually find a better place to fight. So why does it say Vayor Banochal? Omar Mani al Iske Nachal. That Shaul HaMelech got himself involved in a complicated thought of got to do with the Nachal, meaning Nachal of the let's more explains. He said to himself like this. If one person dies, we don't know who killed him, we have to get Egla Wufa. And what to do with the Egla Wufa? We kill it where? In a Nachal Eson, in a desolate, empty Nachal. Killing all these people. If there are people sin, what that will sin? You should just be aware. It's not so easy to destroy Amalek. If I was to say to you, for example, let's say certain country, let's say Germany is Amalek, would you be able to go there from hospital to hospital killing by sword? They didn't have machine guns. Every single baby, woman, you need a certain. So Shaul HaMelech couldn't do it. Yotza Basker v'Omolo Yatid Tzaddik Harbe. Don't be too much of a tzaddik. You try to be bigger tzaddik than Hashem. Or B'Shosh v'Lo Yishol Doig. Siv Atom Kavik. What happened was when David HaMelech was running away from Shaul HaMelech. What did he do? He went past Novi Arkenim. He was starving. He was faint from hunger. So he asked them to give him some bread. Which bread did they give him? They gave him the lechem upon it. When Yomi went and told Shaul HaMelech, what happened was he sent Novi Arkenim gave him that bread. Yomi gave Lashon Hara. So Shaul HaMelech killed the entire city of Novi, men, women, and babies. So Baskin Omar lo yatir shahabe, don't be too much of a Russian. I saw the Sefer Mishpah Yisrael B'Shem of Shach, and I've actually heard this word not from Shach himself, but Talmid of Shach used to say with this word. It's a very subtle word, but if you catch it, it's a very interesting idea. He tells it like this: that Shaul HaMelech in his Kal V'Chomer was correct to a certain extent, meaning he was told to kill. So he was thinking, what is what's in Hashem? And he started thinking it through. He came to the wrong conclusion. So now, why was he so criticized? What was the Tevil Avil? The answer is that there's a time and place to think certain thoughts. And certain machshavas which could be 100% correct, but the only thing incorrect is the timing of them. That itself is incorrect. Alhamdulillah, say, for example, if a person the minute after one says, well, everybody's lying, and then saying, it's because of smartphones or tweets or something that's chinam. Might even be right in theory, but that's not the time and place to be saying it. Rabbi Shach once said that one of the chief rabbis, or Tzar said, spoke about the fact that in Torah we always look for Kach de Teva Odif. We always try and find a Teva. And he spoke about at the time when there was a story of a Shaila in Mamzerus, and he said Kach de Teva Odif. And the Shach said over the Shtikot Torah that you're right that sometimes it is necessary to say such a thing, but choose even something which is 100% correct. But if you've chosen the wrong time to start saying it, then it's incorrect. Let's say Rob makes a big chizuk about something, and something comes along with another point to change it. So it's a very important machshava to think about it. Okay. Omar Avona, kama lo yicholi v'lo yimargish. How much does a person get is like he's safe from illness and safe from pain? Gava de moisai, the one Hashem helps. Shor ba'achas, Shor did one aveil, but also he lost his kingdom. David b'shtaim, David did two aveirs, but also and he did not suffer so badly. Shlomo did one aveil, suffered, and David did two and didn't suffer. I said over this word, the sun is, I think it's a very powerful word. Again, it's a slightly chassidish word, but I saw it in the Sefer Mishpat itself. It's a very nice word. It says like this, that Shol Melech was, if you were to go to the Sunday morning 12 o'clock Shiur on Shmuel Novi, you'd be aware that one of the greatest mitzvahs of Shol Melech was his humility. Tremendous humble person. Even after he was chosen twice to be king, he ran away, etc., etc. He was the most humble person. So the Melech had a mixture of humility, because he said, I'm like a baby in his mother's arms. He had a certain amount of strength and arrogance to a certain extent. He had Shumen, killed it later on, etc. It's like this Shol Ba'achas. Shol chose one Mahalach in Avodas Hashem, and he stuck to it always, and he never, mice at the end of the day, he never remained king. But David Melech had the ability to choose from two different ways, and therefore he remained king. And so there's a famous word that every person has to have in his pocket, one piece of paper, one pocket saying, B'shvili Nivoilam, another one saying, Anechi Ofo Be'efa. It's very important that a person has to have the ability sometimes to choose this way, sometimes to choose that way. Some people are so stuck in their way of thinking, they're not able to ever think of another way of looking at it. And that can't be a leader. And that's Shol HaMelech, because he always went with his humility, it's no good. Okay. Shol Ba'achas Mai. Now the Gemara tries to examine which Aveira is it. Ma'aseh Agog. They let Agog live. The Gemara, says the Gemara, no. By the time he just killed out Agog, already then he lost the kingdom. So for doing one Aveira, he already lost the kingdom. That Hashem decided just after letting Agog live that Shol should no longer be king. So therefore, by doing one Aveira, he lost it. Even though later did more Aveiras, but he's already lost the kingdom from one Aveira. David B'shtaim, I knew. What's the two Aveiras of David? Very, very briefly, what happened was that the Melech saw Bathsheba, he desired her, he took her, and then he arranged for Uya to come home from the battle, and because Bathsheba told him that she's expecting, he told Uya to go home to be with his wife. Uya refused. He said, "The middle of war is not right." So then the Melech realized Bathsheba would be expecting without the husband ever being with her, and something would go very badly. So he had Uya killed. He arranged for Uya to be killed during a battle, and then he married Bathsheba. That was one Aveira, but the Hasosa, the other Aveira was he counted Klal Yisrael later on in his life. He counted Klal Yisrael. But anyway, he can never be Ma'aseh to Bathsheba. That means, besides for having Uya killed, he was also the actual Ma'aseh Bathsheba. As well, also before when they punished him, what happened was that David HaMelech did this Aveira. So the Novi, Nosna Novi came to David HaMelech, and he wanted to tell him off for taking Bathsheba. So the way he did it was very interesting. Is he told him a story, and he asked him, "Can you rule on the story?" You all know the story. That there was once a very, very wealthy person, and he had a guest. And instead of giving food to the guest from his own food, he went to the poor man's house, who only had one sheep, which is his whole parnasa, the wool and everything else. And he shechted the sheep, and he gave the sheep to the guest. And he said to David HaMelech, "What punishment should we give this wealthy person?" So what did David HaMelech say? That the wealthy person deserves to die, plus he has to pay back full sheep. Can you imagine? Why? Because it's mamish act of achzois, it's taking the livelihood of a poor man. So straight away the Nosanavi say to him, "Atoish, you are the man. You've got 18 wives, and finally Uya only has one, and you take his one wife for yourself." So the punishment was fourfold. So what's the four? He lost 4 children. Yeled, Amnon, Tamar, Avshalom. Yeled was Bathsheba, miscarried that child. Amnon raped Tamar, and Avshalom killed him. Tamar was raped, right? There's a whole story that he arranged for it to be Yichud, and from then on Yichud is also. Avshalom was killed by, who was Avshalom killed by? Yoel. Very good, who said Yoel? Oh, very good. You have killed Avshalom, even though David Melech asked him not to. Okay. If that's the case, that Bevo counted Klaison, if they also punished him, how many people died in that few hours of the Deva? Paul says 70,000 Eden. 70,000 Eden died, so that's a proper punishment. Also, they didn't punish the Melech himself, punished Klaison. At the end of the day, David didn't suffer himself, only his children died, not himself. Indeed, if he suffered himself, for 6 months David suffered from leprosy. When the Sanhedrin stopped talking to him, and he lost the Shechina. So those three things was his own personal punishment, and so he had like a death penalty. Mashal explains that there's the mind, the body, and the soul. The tztaveya, the leprosy, destroyed the body. The mind, the Sanhedrin refused to talk to him in learning. And the soul, he says, is that the Shechina removed himself. So he suffered in all three. That's the Sanhedrin. That he davened, the Sanhedrin should come back. He wanted the joy of his Yisroel, that's the Shechina, because in Shechina Sheira, Elu Teich Simcha, so he davened for the Simcha to come back. He did another Aveira. That David Melech accepted Lashon Hara. What was the Lashon Hara? Very briefly, when Avshalom rebelled, so what happened was he ran away, and the Mephibosheth, who was related to Shaul Melech, actually cared deeply for David. But he had a terrible servant called Siva, and Siva lied to David Melech and told him that Mephibosheth is rejoicing that Avshalom has taken over because he hates you. David Melech believed it, and he said to Siva, you and Mephibosheth can share all his property. So he accepted Lashon Hara. Answers more Kishmo, Doma lo kibod David Lashon Hara. He did not accept Lashon Hara. Here it's very interesting. Why didn't he accept Lashon Hara? He accepted Lashon Hara. The answer is that he had proof. Mephibosheth did certain things to show that he was not respectful of David Melech. And when the person's got Davorim and Ikorim, he's allowed to be choshesh, to be concerned about it, and therefore, they punished him. I said, you should split the field. You said they should split their property, so your kingdom will be split, and therefore they should split the kingdom. Tesis points out that the Batul Tesis, he did another Avir, that he sang Shiur when Shaul Melech died. Shiur the David, the Shul Hashem. The Tesis says, interesting line, let's see the last 3 lines of Tesis, the ancient Tesis. That's considered the Shogig, the Shiur the David. If he said, Adam Nitvas had Savoy, Shaul Void for him. End of the day, he was in a lot of pain, David Melech. The Shaul Melech spent his whole life chasing him. And something which happens from a lot of pain, ain't Adam Nitvas had Savoy. And therefore, a person has to be aware, it's considered a shogeg and not amazed. Many times you hear somebody doing something very bad, you have to be aware if it's from a position of tsar, so it's not considered amazing, it's only considered a shogeg. Okay. So the world says like this. Ben Shana Shaul was 1 year old when he became king. Ben Shana Shaul that he never did any averos. Obviously, he can't be 1 year old. Can't be 1 year old when you're king. It means that he was like 1 year old, just like a 1 year old has never done any averos. Shaul Melech never did any averos. Now Shaul says Hagufa, because Shaul Melech never did any averos, that is why Hashem was so harsh with him, because Hashem was medactic with the tzaddikim chotasai. A 1 year old gets very dirty because they crawl around in all the dirt. So maybe like a 1 year old that he was dirty and filthy. That night, when Nachman asked the question, the whole night he saw malachim of punishment. So he got very scared. The next morning, I spoke too harshly at Shaul ben Kish, the bones of Shaul ben Kish. The next night again saw nightmares. Shaul ben Kish, Melech Yisroel. He didn't speak to him back with respect, therefore he deserved to suffer again. And only when he spoke respectfully the second night did the seal, to the fear stop. Why did the kingdom of Shaul not last? There was nothing wrong with him. He was perfect. We don't make a leader, and it became kupa shortsim, what we call it, a skeleton in the closet. That's what? A baggage. Oh, very good. A box of shrotzim, of insects, nulo ma'achoyro. So to zwach that, if it gets too arrogant, go back to yourself. I once said the whole shiur for Bel Wine on these two lines. I don't remember how he was speaking about a certain God or something. He's very interesting Bel Wine because he could be quite blunt. And he spoke that there were certain Gedolim that were, so to speak, so perfect that they would clash. I'm not going to say which name he used. That's probably a thing. But he said because Shais, they didn't do anything wrong. Since they didn't do anything wrong, so therefore when they saw something wrong, they would speak about it with very tremendous harshness. Now, Sheikh, to have a good leader, it has to be somebody that himself has had many times done it wrong. When a person himself has got a difficult background, so his whole attitude changes. So he said to me, that's a very nice line. Don't judge others for sinning differently from the way you sin. Everybody sins. It's a question of how they sin. But don't judge others harshly for sinning when all they're doing is sinning differently from the way you are. That's the reality of life. It's a very nice line, you know. It's got like all of his good. How you judge somebody else? He sins, you say just you're upset by him. He's sinning that way, but you sin that way. So anyway, but it's an interesting Gemara over here that to be the effective leader, a person has to have, so to speak, you think to yourself, it's a chison. Lord says it's a maila because by having it. Omar Yehuda Marab, if they man in Ashur, why was he punished for the shemochel al kavod? He was moichel on his covered. Shenem of bnei bli al omu mayeshedu zevay bezu v'levi lo mincha v'yikem achlish. When Shaul HaMelech first became king, there were many people that refused to honor him and refused to pay taxes and refused to treat him. And what happened was he refused to stick up for his covet, and since he refused to stick up for his covet, so therefore what happened was he showed that he was not royal to be king. Again, the Mashal says, look at the words in Rashi. The Mashal decides a few words, but look at Rashi, the second to bottom Rashi. A person who can be moichel when he shouldn't be, but his melucha is not kedai to be king. What happened was I was nervous. It was a long daf, so we went a bit faster, and now we're finished. I'm going to stop here because the next Gemara is anything. Very good, Sheikh. It's a wonderful thing to start a new parak. There are very lots of different things to learn over here on how to behave.